Today we're going to cover the three things that give beginners all kinds of problems when it comes to installing baseboards. I'm going to show you how to scribe into this brick over here, and then we're going to learn the pro tricks to scribe out a dip like this, but not end up scribing all the baseboards in the entire room. And then stick around for the last one because it is the one that most people overlook and causes the biggest problems. All right, so I got my first piece cut, and a little measuring tip here. Anytime you have a long piece of baseboard, it's always easier to measure from one side. I butted into the farthest part of the brick, made a mark at 30 inches, butt into the top of the drywall here. That's going to give you the most accurate measurement. I cut a 90-inch piece, and you can see we're running into some problems here. I have to scribe it into the brick in order for the piece to fit. But in order to get the right height on the baseboard, I have to first take care of the dip. And that brings us to the golden rule of baseboard. Scribe the fewest amount of pieces possible. Well, let me show you how to do that. With this situation here, the run continues around this room. I went around with a 6-foot level and just checked to see if there was any more scribing needed, and there wasn't. 90% of your scribing problems are going to happen where the boards butt end into the wall. Because of all those joints, it just exaggerates the problem. Along the lengthwise, most of the time you're going to be able to just push the baseboard down, which is the case here. So this is the little hack to make sure that we keep the full height here, is take a 1/4 inch shim, the same size as the gap that we have, break it in half, take one end here and prop this side up. There we go. And now we're going to need to find the studs just so we can nail into something secure. Now the key here is to jam this thing down as hard as it will go and then nail it into the studs. And check out the gap. Yeah, and we're looking pretty dang good here. And now we're just going to scribe out the rest of the run, and then theoretically we should be able to push this thing into place, take care of the dip, and just scribe into the brick where no other pieces are adjoining. Now, when it comes to cutting out the scribe line, kind of the safest, easiest method is a jigsaw. I prefer to use the circular saw and a belt sander. If you want to see all the little ins and outs of that method, I will link a video at the end of this one where you can check all that out. For now, I'm just going to cut this and we're going to see if this thing fits. And if you're wondering about this raw edge here and if it's a concern for water, should you prime this? Should you put some caulking over here? I ended up doing a serious test where I soaked these pieces on some water overnight. And now if we look at the MDF, we got factory primed, raw edge, 2 more raw edges, but I spray primed and then put caulking here. All these pieces got damaged. They all absorbed water. If we want to split hairs, the piece with the caulking did hold up slightly better in that it did not crack along the base, but they all did get damaged. So for my house, I'm not going to worry too much about treating this raw edge in any of the areas that are not going to see a lot of water. If you take a look at the pine pieces, there was almost no damage. In the bathrooms where there's going to be a lot of water, what I think I might end up doing is taking some flat stock, ripping off the top part of the MDF molding and then combining them to make a similar molding that will be more water resistant. The reason why I'm not putting pine throughout the whole house is you just can't find any of the nice profiles in the area that I live in. All right, with a little shove down, we should be looking pretty good for the scribe. We won't know until we get it scribed into the brick. This is the next chapter in the Chronicles of Narnia here. This is a difficult piece, I'm not gonna lie. Now, if we had the ability to run this piece wild and just work the scribe into the brick, you could easily take a compass or a shim and a pencil and just trace out the profile, make a cut, trace it out a little more, make another cut. But because we're between 2 fixed points, we got to break out the profiling tool here. We're going to get the profile, we're going to trace it onto the end of the board, and we're going to get a perfect fit. Put a little scrap in here, and then let's get this thing set properly here. Now the key to these things here is you want to make sure that this little black base is sitting flat, and that will allow you to transfer the right angle of the profile onto the baseboard. Let's push that all in. That's pretty snug. We'll lock it in place. And now to transfer this mark here, it is key to get a nice little flat edge here and then rest the bottom of that black base on there, and we'll move it just until it gets to the edge of the board. We'll hold that in place with our thumb. Now, because this dips down here, just get over top of it at a 90 and eyeball it the best you can. This is our cutaway section here. And let's cut that out. And if you're enjoying the video to this point, give us a like. It helps us out big time. If you want to check out all the tools involved in this whole process, I will put the links down in the description. If you're watching on TV, you can check out the QR code. Let me show you how to cut this profile out like an absolute boss. The key here is a jigsaw and one of these little scroll blades. They're nice and narrow so you can make all the turns and they're not going to chip the finish to heck. So we'll pop that in the jigsaw and then clamp down your work so you can get both hands on the tool and you're going to get a much nicer cut. And even with this small blade, you still can't make a 90-degree turn. So you're going to have to come from a couple different angles to join up the cut. And then I always like to keep a little bit of a tilt, nothing crazy, but just a little back bevel tilt. To get close right onto the line, a belt sander is the nicest way to go here. And I'm just kind of carving out a little more bevel. And then just to ease onto the line, I like to use a little sanding block with some 150 grit and just get those lines in the little fine details. And then you always want to just put a little micro bevel on here, because if you don't, there's 100% chance that those edges are going to chip as soon as they touch anything. All right, the brick scribe is very nice. Gap, see if we can push this down. Okay. All right, let's push that down and nail it in place and have a look. And now you can see from standing up or even sitting on the couch, that is looking good. And even if you're down right on the ground, it still looks 1,000 times better than it did before. And the key takeaway here is before you start installing your baseboards, you want to take a level or a straight edge. You can use a piece of baseboard, assess your situation. Over here on this side run, I do have a bit of a hump, but it's going to be very easy to just push that down and nail it in place. But I definitely had to deal with this nasty gap here. So I cheated the scribe and took it out of the terminal end, leaving the piece that connects full height. So now I can take a full-size piece of baseboard, butt that in, and I'm not going to have to scribe the rest of the run. And now this is the last problem that amateurs face. I get asked this all the time. What size nails are you using, and do you have to hit the studs? Let me quickly answer those for you, because if you don't do them right, you can have huge problems. I like to use an 18 gauge nailer. For this type of baseboard here that's about 5/8 thick, I will go for the 2-inch nail. And this is the danger zone of studs where electrical wires and water pipes run. With the 2-inch nail, you can see you're getting maximum holding power, but you're not getting into the danger zone where all kinds of bad things can happen. If the baseboard was a little thinner, I would go to the 1 3/4 inch nails. And then the easiest way to actually hit a water pipe or a wire is to miss the stud. So make sure you have a decent stud finder. The Franklin stud finder here is the best one that I've found, just because it's super easy to see where the center is and where the edges of the stud are. This is where all the wires and the pipes run down the wall, and this is the safe zone. And if you use the right length nail, you're going to be good to go. And hey, if you want to see how to get perfect inside corners and outside corners with your baseboards, go ahead and check out this video right over here.